Having knowledge and putting arguments before interview board on these issues which are going on in international relations, there's a difference between the two. We have to together bridge this gap. So let's start. You need to understand three things. Awareness means whenever a question is asked, interview board also know that you have cleared prelims, mains and interview. Now you are at this stage, but whether you are able to interlink the principles of international relations and the current happenings in the right manner or not. So if you supplement your idea with a happening which was recently going on, or a statement by our External Affairs Minister, so it gives more legitimacy to your answer. So we need to know how we need to put our arguments. We need to avoid any radical stand. No matter how much inclined you are towards that idea, you need to find a fine balance. So how you need to incorporate in your answers these three insights? Let's start with one question. Should India revisit One China policy to counter China's aggressive behavior? It's fine. Okay. So first of all, if this question has been asked, you need to identify the keywords. Means interview board is asking this question from you. So we are going to discuss the background, and then we are going to talk about salient points which you need to give in your interview. First of all, what is One China policy? What is India's stand over One China policy? Should we change that policy? What could be the positives or negatives of this change? Do we know certain scholarly ideas to supplement our argument? So it means you need to fine-tune your argument in the following way. For example, One China policy. What is One China policy? China says if you want to establish diplomatic relations with China, then you need to officially accept that Taiwan is part of People's Republic of China. There's a background to this, because when we read about the history of China, so there was a contestation which was going on between Communist Party under the leadership of Mao Zedong, and on the other hand, nationalist forces under the leadership of Chiang Kai-shek. The party name was Kuomintang. In this struggle, finally Communist Party won this particular contestation, and they claimed their rule over whole China, which we know as People's Republic of China. Although Kuomintang was pushed back to Formosa Island, now we know as Taiwan. But China's official stand was that Taiwan is part of People's Republic of China. Many of you might be thinking, oh, we have diplomatic office in Taiwan. It means India officially does not accept One China policy. But that's not the right assertion, because the reason is, from the 1950s, India has officially accepted One China policy. Although interesting point is, in past few communiques, means joint statements which are released by head of the governments when they meet, India has not officially used this word One China policy. From time and again, pressure has been leveled, or diplomatic channels have been used by China so that India in official statement should say that yes, we accept One China policy, but India has strategically avoided it. It means sometimes strategic silence is used in place of clear negation. If you're a student of PSR and this question has been asked from you, although no matter what your optional is, because current happenings are so much, are having a huge coverage of news nowadays, so questions are going to be asked from each, probabilities every optional student should know about it. But if you're a PSR optional student, then evaluator will expect that you are going to use some nuanced terms, right, in a right manner. So what is One China policy? We're talking about recognizing that whole China, which People's Republic of China says that this is China, we also recognize it. So it means it also includes Taiwan, and it also includes the claim of China over Tibet region. Now India's status, we accept yes, right? but I also told you how we have maintained silence in official communiques in recent past, right? And that's why this debate have cropped up. Is India trying to change its stance? Because in the swearing in ceremony of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, so surprisingly, ambassador from Taiwan, who is representing the interest of Taipei, the capital of Taiwan, he was present there. Along with him, there was another member who was head of Tibetan Central Administration, which represent Tibetan government in exile. So it means China says Taiwan, Tibet, they are part of China. If anyone has to come into some official ceremony, it should be from Chinese government, maybe their ambassador or any other person, maybe their foreign minister. But if two other representatives are separately invited, what does it mean? It means that India recognizes in a subtle tone that these two are separate entities also, in subtle tone though, right? So there was a parliamentary committee on this, and they recommended that India should actually leave the policy of deference when it comes to China. What do you mean by policy of deference? Deference means we have been too much respectful, accommodative when it comes to China's assertiveness in our northeast, in our Ladakh region. And this has not given us anything. Let me take you back into the initial years why we accepted one China policy. One theory is, for example, in case of say Tibet, we accepted that okay, you have claimed Tibet, and so we were having a strategic balance there because we accepted Dalai Lama's entry in India. We also allowed Dalai Lama to run this Tibetan government in exile from Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. But we also accepted okay, Tibetan annexation, or you can say takeover by China. But we were accepting that on one condition, that Tibetan autonomy is going to be there. But do you think that China has actually completed on, or you can say followed on his own promise? No. It means that China in recent past has gone back from the promises which China has made. And that is why many foreign policy experts say that if China is going back from its promises, number one, Tibetan autonomy, then you have a chance to go back from your promise as well. That recognizing, oh, Taiwan may be a separate entity too. Then another reason is we also expected, means in initial years, that if we accept China's annexation in Tibet, then it is going to ease the tensions on border, and it may result into resolution of border disputes between China and India. But do you think that actually happened? No. China time and again actually gone back from that assertion as well and being more assertive in recent past. So China has been using its economic and military rise to actually arm twist or create geopolitical contestation in its neighborhood. There's an interesting point which is given by Mr. Harsh V. Pant, famous scholar on international politics. He said, following this one China policy, or say policy of deference, has not given us much. Even we can say that we have lost some stance. India has been on defensive mode. Oh, Arunachal Pradesh area, this is us. Ladakh area, this is us. But we were on defensive mode in our own territory. So sometimes you have to shed the deference and you have to think more of other strategic alignments. So it may be possible that with an interview, someone is going to actually counter question, put a counter question. They may say, do you think it is going to be, it is going to be bring all positiveness, and we are going to, when we are going to change the status and we are going to recognize Taiwan as a separate nation, then it is going to resolve the problems between India and China? Or there's other possibility as well, that it may escalate the situation, and China may have one more reason to actually create border tensions. So they may actually put this as a counter. As I told you, in interview you have to find a balance in your answer. This was just one side of argument. Another side is that there can be both positive and negative, and this issue needs to be analyzed in deep. And we also know that negative ramifications may be there, and that is why India has been following a policy of strategic, you can say, silence, and you can say groupings to put a pressure on China, while recognizing that yes, Taiwan is part of China, yet India has a diplomatic office in Taiwan capital Taipei, right? We have a India-Taiwan Association, and which is headed by a senior diplomat. And this Taiwan is also having a cooperation, education and cultural cooperation arrangement based in Delhi. So it means on the both ends, when it comes to Taiwan and Tibet, it's not like we are towing the line of one China policy in letter and spirit. At every point, we were also actually doing the calculations, what is in our favor, what may go against us. But now, since we have seen escalations, have been rising in recent past, so yes, it has been quoted by certain scholars that we can actually look other way, right? We can actually think of other strategic calculations and may use this Taiwan issue to negotiate further on pending conflicts on our borders. So this is how you can actually balance your answer. So let's go one by one what you can say. So these are some facts. The diplomatic relations going on from 1950. Positive point is that Taiwan can be used as a bargaining chip to get more advances, or you can say resolve some of the pending issues. But there are potential drawbacks as well. Always remember, UPSC wants to see from how many dimensions you can analyze a particular issue. You should not be actually swayed by one particular idea. Say, if you are actually swayed by hyper nationalism and you are saying no, you just recognize Taiwan and we should have more strong, you can say, opinion over Tibet as well. So if you are having this idea, definitely you can actually give this idea. But the point is, every argument you place, it should be backed by certain logics. And when they are going to put you in a situation, when they are going to throw counters over you, then you should not lose your balance, right? So that's important. That's why you should actually have, you should always say, yes, there are both sides, right? Maybe positive, maybe negative, and we have to actually calculate the both sides, right? Escalations can rise, so that's negative. Non-interference has been our policy. This is another argument, that when it comes to India's foreign policy, so we have certain core, right? And the core values are non-interference. Some of you might say, oh, how is it non-interference when we are recognizing, how is it violation of non-interference when we recognize Taiwan? Taiwan is a separate nation and Tibet has been annexed. You may be correct from one point, but as I told you, you need to balance your answer from other arguments as well. And that is why you are going to say that other partners of India, you can say other friendly nations of India, or members of world community with whom we have good relations, may think that India is going back from its core value of non-interference. And they may think that in future, if situation is different, that India may actually support a policy of interference in their nation as well. And in that context, we should be careful why we make such statements, because it may be our reality, it may be good for us, but we need to think of those who are in favor of one China policy and standing strong with China. And many of those are third world countries, developing countries, who are in need of Chinese investment. And you also know that India wants to project itself as leader of South-South cooperation, Asian African countries. And if these Asian countries, African countries are standing or having some side with China, recognizing one China policy, and they are observing, oh, India is going back from non-interference and India is siding with the West and following this policy of interference, then we should actually think of what could be a potential diplomatic loss there. I hope you got the argument. If you got the argument, just mention yes in comments. Taiwan and Tibet, we should consider both, take into account. I already told you why we actually accepted, because we thought that it is going to resolve our border issues. We are going to have better, you can say, peaceful atmosphere on our borders, and we are going to also, support this Tibetan autonomy. But these things never happened. Normalization never happened. So that is why some say that this policy has been a useless proposition. We did that, but this did not give any result. Many would actually criticize Nehruvian stand on Tibet at that point of time, right? And you may say, okay, these are the policy of Nehruvian era. But please remember, these ideas may be in news a lot, right? But you should not use these kind of terminologies, that these are the drawbacks which we are observing out of Nehruvian actually idealism, which actually penetrated, or you can say was the foundation of India's foreign policy. So you should not actually put blame on Nehru in your answers there, right? Because you never know that the people who are sitting there, they belong to an era that they recognize what good has actually happened in India's stature at international level during that time as well, right? And they also know that they're very well-versed people. They also know that some of you cannot say these were Nehruvian ideals. First of all, they were used in Nehru's time, but the base of these ideals were found in India's culture. And in international policy or international relations, whenever you actually make a decision, no one knows how it is going to turn. We are able to actually put blame only when we got the result, right? And similarly, you can actually think that it happens in every field, right? So it means we should actually know that there are some positives and negatives of those idealism as well, which were core of India's foreign policy at that point of time, and they are core of India's foreign policy as of now as well. And I'm going to actually put some references in my discussion in the next question as well, right? So avoid siding with these ideas like anti-Nehruvian, okay? Now I gave you this example that from Taiwan and Tibet, right, both representatives were there in swearing-in ceremony. So please remember, the person, Lobsang Sangay, he was not representing the official, Chinese official Tibetan government. He was representing Tibetan government in exile, right? And that was point of contention among the Chinese officials as well, right? So this is what I was talking about, India-Taipei Association, Taipei Economic Cultural Center in New Delhi. India's parliamentary committee also suggested that we should actually shed this deferential, you can say, foreign policy, respecting, accommodating. This is a time that we should be more assertive. So you can also quote a statement of our foreign minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar, that he has also said that India is actually up for a muscular foreign policy, assertive foreign policy, and this is a reality as of now, because today's India is not India of 1962. We have moved up in the ladder when it comes to economic status as well as military status as well as diplomatic status, right? So careful consideration should be done. So this should be a conclusive side, that careful consideration should be done about the potential risk and benefits, and then only we can actually proceed further. I also told you about the statement by Mr. Harshvi Pant, If Beijing is not sensitive to India's core interests, then New Delhi too should signal to resolve to move away from old arrangements. But please remember, you should use the scholar. Okay, he said that, right? Now, our next question. What is India's stand on Russia-Ukraine crisis? How India profited from the war? So there are two questions within this question, right? So before we move forward, let me tell you this batch has started, foundation batch, complete coverage, everything is there. So one course, complete coverage, material, very structured, available in very structured manner. You have test series, benchmarking, etc. So what you need is routine. So live classes are there. What you need, your doubts being solved. So there's a mentoring team there. So what you need to do, you just need to go to studyiq.com and just choose this batch, batch 2. And when you actually are enrolling in this batch, you can use the code Tyagi Live to get maximum benefit. And I'm going to be there with you there. Now, so what is India's stand? Let's focus on the keywords which are being asked. India's stand on Russia-Ukraine crisis. India's stand is a strategic neutrality. Or you can say there's another word, studied public neutrality. You can say public neutrality, right? So if I ask, has India gained from Russia-Ukraine war, or it has put India into some problems as well? What would be your response? I think many of you would say, sir, we have gained a lot. We have gained in terms of cheap energy, right? Why? Oil and gas, right? We have gained in terms of export, surge in export, better rates in case of wheat, because we know that Russia and Ukraine account for around 30% of the export to the region when it comes to wheat, right? And India also had a bumper production of wheat in the same year. What else you would say? You would say that energy we have gained, export we have gained. We also gained in terms of airline sector. The reason is because due to these sanctions, imposed by West on Russia, so Russia has also blocked its airspace for European carriers, but it has not been blocked for India. So if West or some companies from West has to use that route, then they have to take help of Indian Airlines or access which is given to Indian Airlines, right? But the point is, do you think this is actually a benefit which is a game changer? I'm not saying that you should think of morality perspective. I'm just talking about very pragmatic stance in which you should actually think. From moral perspective, you might say, no, sir, it is actually profiteering. It is like opportunism in others' pain of Ukrainian. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about that in pragmatic sense, realist sense. Do you think India has gained only, or we have lost as well? We have other gain as well. For example, there is surge of IT jobs. Because why there's a surge of IT jobs? Many of you might wonder. The reason is countries like Poland, Belarus, etc., the countries adjacent to Ukraine, so they were dependent on their IT services over Ukraine since Ukraine crisis. So they were outsourcing these jobs, and there has been a surge in IT jobs in India, right? So majorly these are three main benefits, and fourth one is that airline logic. But the point is, you can say this is a benefit which is just a fallout of war, right? You cannot say that we have gained only. So we are going to discuss it further. First, let's talk about the first part. What does India stand on Russia's Ukraine crisis? So public neutrality. Don't you think it also shows idea of non-alignment? Or as our External Affairs Minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar has said, he said, this is not the age of alliance. This is the age of issue-based partnership. And any issue where India sees its national interest, so India is not going to shy away from having good relations or building or forging partnerships there. So the point is that we have followed pursuing our national interest, not getting bogged down by the Western argument that India should be moral enough to actually to be against Russia. We are not following that because we consider that as old alignment techniques, and we are believing in non-alignment here, or we can say strategic alignment, or using strategic autonomy. So strategic autonomy is another word, because we are weighing our choices as per our interests, right? Public neutrality. Why public neutrality? There's a fair logic there. On one hand, we have new strategic, you can say, alignment with West. I'm saying new, because if we compare our relation with US in comparison to Russia, Russia has been an all-time friend, right? We know contribution of Russia in liberation of Bangladesh war, 1971, right? We also know that Russia has been, why we are talking about what is India's stand on Russia's Ukraine crisis, right? Question is what, but we are also discussing logic, okay? So stand is neutrality, right? But this neutrality is not like we have shunned our support, we have shunned our, you can say, conscience over human rights. No. The reason is India has criticized without name calling violence against civilians. There was one statement that we are against butchery in Bucha. Bucha is a place where many several unarmed civilians were gunned down. But the very next day, when a resolution was actually brought in UNGA against Russian action, India abstained. So we abstained means we are using this abstain stance, means we are not in positive, we are not against. So why we are using it? So it shows our neutrality. So we abstained such resolution in USC, UNSA, UNGA, and IAEA. So in all three bodies we abstained, but we criticized violence against civilians. So this is India's stand. We are going to enter into why as well, but let me discuss it further. So it shows that India is committed to peace, because it is part of India's foreign policy. It is foundation of India's foreign policy that we are committed, that we should support peace and development. You can also quote the statement by Honorable PM that world is not ready to actually have another scourge of violence, because we are just recovering from COVID crisis. The world is not ready for that. Economy is not ready for that. So what our Prime Minister said, solution is DD, means dialogue and diplomacy. So this is our stance: neutrality, criticism publicly, but without name calling, right? Abstaining from international bodies means not going against Russia officially in international bodies. Supporting peace and development, dialogue and diplomacy. Officially, our Foreign Secretary in 1920, Harsh V. Shringla, was in Ukraine as well, and he showed solidarity for territorial integrity of Ukraine, for human rights violations in Ukraine, and committing that all kind of support which India can give at international level for bringing peace there, right? But the language which was used was very strategically balanced. Our Foreign Secretary, while he was in Ukraine, so he was not raising any statement against Putin's action in Ukraine. At this point of time, if interviewer counter questions and he says, so can we say that India and China are having same stance on Russia's action in Ukraine? What you are going to respond? Then you are going to say, no sir, it's not correct. You are going to say, no sir, I beg to differ here. The reason is because because when Mr. Putin was in China, so at the joint communique, means joint declaration, Mr. Xi Jinping has said that he has said that such action in Ukraine was due to genuine security concerns of Russia. So it means in case of China, China has officially supported the reason for war, but we have not supported or gave any statement about the reason of war or any justification of war from Russia's side, right? So there's a difference there. So now, what does it show? Means this stance. So it shows core of India's foreign policy, our commitment, right? Now from pragmatic side, realism side, why we accepted this stance? Why neutrality? Because we know that West is our new strategic ally. New strategic ally. Why? Because we need investment, we need stature, increase in stature at international institutions, right? We need technology at favorable terms, right? And we need these markets as well, right? Markets. So we have several reasons, right? Along with this, we need West because we have this common adversary, that is China. China is a threat to US hegemony, and China is threat to our border security. So it means convergence on security issues. Convergence on security issues. So this is actually the most important one actually, right? That's why we have many groupings for this. Now the point is, so this is new strategic alignment with West. With West, you can say US as well, right? But on the other end, we have East. Means here we are talking about Russia. So Russia has been our old, trusted, all-weather friend. These are the terms which are used, right? Now actually reason goes further. The reason is we cannot actually compromise one for another. We cannot. Because when it comes to Russia, though we have actually, you can say, diversified our imports in case of defense, but yet Russia is critical for India's defense. Defense imports I'm talking about. We also know that we have a lot of opportunities with Russia in terms of co-production in defense and then exporting. That India's defense indigenization program, where co-production, co-development is an important angle, and there Russia is an important partner, right? Another point is that going away from Russia can actually create an alliance which is detrimental for geoeconomic and geostrategic interest. For example, we all know China and Pakistan axis. Just think, if we actually move away from Russia because we want more from West, what is going to happen? It may be possible that Pakistan also get close to Russia. We don't want to support such temptations of Russia to get close to Pakistan. In past, we have seen that Russia wants to export some defense equipments to Pakistan for their own national interest, obviously, because Russia's defense exports are the main component of their, you can say, economy, right? But if India remains a partner engaging in defense activities, co-production, co-development and export, then definitely such temptations may reduce. If India is close to Russia, then India can actually use its strategic weight over Russia to be at arm's length, or you can say have some balance, or you can say be away from such kind of alliance, right? Another most important point is that if this happens, because China would like this to happen, right? Because China is adversary of India, Pakistan is adversary of India, and if we go to the logic of Russia and China, we know that Russia is able to actually continue this war due to China. One reason is China, I would say. One reason is China. Why? Because China is among the largest, you can say, importer of Russian energy and other equipments. It means China is important for Russian economy, and economy is connected to military strength, and military strength is connected to security of Russia against NATO, and that is why this alliance is way more important for Russia. All right. So I hope you got the idea, right? What are the situations here? So now just read this again. What is India's stand on Russian-Ukraine crisis? So you know public neutrality, non-alignment, right? And you know what we publicly said, right? Abstaining from international forums when it comes to going against Russia. Now, has India profited from war? So these are the reasons. But what are the negatives? Means what is not supportive? What is not supportive is that this has put India into a diplomatic puzzle. Because on one side we have West, other side we have East, means Russia. And we have to find a fine balance. If it continues for long and we are not actually following sanctions which are imposed by West, obviously, then it may actually bring some gap in West and India. West may try to align with Indian adversaries like Pakistan. Means we have seen in the past that due to India's closeness with US reciprocated during Trump's time to impose some stringent, you can say, actions against Pakistan, like putting it in FATF grey list and issuing statements like Pakistan should stop using terrorism in statecraft. But if we put a gap here, then we see the same US-Pakistan bonhomie coming in, right? So that is a challenge here, right? And we have challenge from this side as well, right? For how long, in what way we can continue this? Because if we talk about spectrum of benefits, then spectrum of benefits lie here, right? Variety of benefits lie here, right? If we talk about some core benefits from equipment, defense, etc., as well as that alignment, we don't want that Russia, Pakistan, China alignment, then our core benefits are here as well. When it comes to tech, defense equipment, Russia's equipments seems to be cheaper, at least in start, right? And when it comes to the standard of technology, we have access to better technologies from Russian side, which US has not been, had not been willing to give us, right? So better technology means upgraded technology is coming from Russia. But when it comes to market, international institutions, international system working in India's favor, we need to align with West. Apart from this, this is just one logic, means I'm talking about why it is not good, why this war is not good. You are going to say in interview that the positives which we are talking about are just fallouts of war. These are just fallouts of war, right? These are not the things that we were cherishing such things should happen, right? Second point is that India has been a supporter of freedom, rule-based world order, human rights. But if we use this neutrality, West may think or many other countries may think that India truly does not support the ideas of human rights, freedom, rule-based world order. And don't you think West has been siding with India, for example, in Quad, for these principles, rule-based world order? So if China is our adversary and we want nations to side with us, understand the challenge which China is posing, then what is the common thread? Common thread is commitment to these universal values. But if we are not recognizing them as universal values in Ukraine crisis, then it may actually put India into a tough diplomatic position. What we are going to say means it is going to make things questionable in near future. Right? Yes. So these are some challenges that we need to calibrate. Right? So now I hope it is clear to you. So neutral stance, escalation between Russia and China, statement, dialogue and diplomatic means, principle of peaceful coexistence, peace and stability in the region, non-interference in the internal affairs, that has been our core. Not to get involved in the sanctions. We were not getting involved in the sanctions like West was imposing, right? Because we have areas of convergence with Russia, dependence I would say when it comes to defense, energy, right? Harshveer Singla, I told you about it. India has sought to maintain good relations with Russia and Ukraine, avoided taking sides. What our external affairs minister said, we are this is not the time of alliances, this is the time of issue-based partnerships, right? We condemned publicly, but when it comes to these resolutions, UNSC, UNGA, IAEA, we were abstaining. Has India profited? Gas, wheat, IT sector, and fourth one I also told you, right? So it may seem like a profit, but it is an unintentional positive fallout of the war. Cost of war India suffers is also there. Tough time to balance its relation. New strategic allies, West and East, that I have already explained this to you. Placing global diplomatic and heat on questions of human right, based world order, right? Non-aggression, these commitments which are required to be recognized India as a world leader. So this is the question which is going to be asked in near future. Russian temptation with new strategic ally with Pakistan, I've already told you. China, Pakistan, Russian axis. Russia remains critical for weapon, usually cheaper but better technology. Willing to provide India high leverage strategic technology, advanced weapon systems. So in last you can actually quote Happy Moon Jacob. He says, an aggressive Russia is a problem for USA, not for us. Right? Aggressive Russia is a problem for US, not for us. Right? NATO expansion is Russia's problem, not for India. Then why should we actually take sides? This is not our problem. India's problem is China, and it needs both US and Russia to deal with China problem. That is the core. So you can actually conclude your answer with this. I hope you got it. I am going to upload this PDF on Shashank Tyagi for you Telegram group, and you can connect with me over this Instagram, Shashank Tyagi for you, if you have any doubt or at any time. All the updates actually come in these two platforms. You can also connect with Twitter. I hope you got some clarity. And last again, courses are going on, batches are going on. You just have to start your class. Sometimes we are just one step away from taking right decision and alter our journey. You just have to use Tyagi Live code for maximum discount and just start your journey. Take care.